morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour live on this Tuesday, July the 3rd, one day away from our nation's birthday. Just as a program reminder, the show will replay tomorrow. We will be closed tomorrow in observance of the 4th of July holiday. So if you need to get your business taken care of, make sure you get it taken care of today. Got a great show lined up for you. As promised, we are going to do Rob Kirby today. It was such a great piece. By the way, I used the archive feature on our website today. Fantastic. All American Gold is the website. The phone number, 800-951-0592. That is our toll-free number. And, of course, the physical delivery of gold and silver wealth insurance. It is what we do. Nobody does it better than us. Not only do we got great prices, not only do we got a great radio program, not only do we have the best website in the business, we also have great programs like our metals program. Of course, as you know, June was the end of the second quarter. We have started shipping. It's been minimal. The majority of the metals plan will go out next Monday and Tuesday because Wendy really is the one that handles the metals program with me. And because of the holiday and the way things got scheduled, and nobody likes to ship around the holiday times because you don't want that stuff hanging around in the post office. We'll be done with it by the end of next week. But most of it will go out next week, and we should probably be. Wendy's looking at me. I don't want to overpromise, but we should be done by next week. Yeah, that's reasonable. That's fair. So all of you metals plan people, by the way, what a great program. You know, it's a great way to do a couple of different things. If you don't have a 401k, it's a great way to save. If you want to save in addition to your 401, because, let's face it, you're going to need whatever you think you're going to need. You might as well just triple it, because that's what inflation is doing. The devaluation of the United States currency is upon us, whether we want to admit it or not. The metals program, a great way to get involved. You can do it with as little as $100 a month. There is no maximum, so you can do as much as you like. But you have to do at least $100 a month. You get 4 physical deliveries a year. You know, you just keep putting it away. Put it away, and you put it away, and you put it away. And you know what? You look up 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, you're going to have one whale of a portfolio. So if you want to sign up for that, July starts the next quarter here at 800-951-0592. Apparently, everything in the world has changed, well, at least as far as gold goes. Gold's up $16. Yep, you heard that right, $16. $1,258. Silver's up 25 cents at $16. The Dow, looked like it's going to have a big day, and now it's come all the way. The Dow's getting ready to go negative. NASDAQ's already negative. The Dow right now is up 9 points. We got a lot of things to cover today. We're going to focus in on Kirby's interview on USA Watchdog. It was on our site yesterday. Well, we can't play the whole thing, but we're going to play the big pieces of it. We're going to just a very, very telling piece about what's really happening. A huge chasm of divide between Germany and the United States. Obviously, Germany, the main player in the euro, a lot of it centering around UBS, and of course, or was it UBS? I don't want to. Maybe I have the wrong bank. Deutsche Bank, I believe. We'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'm sorry. I'm just so rattled here because I've been working with these phone guys. By the way, shout out to Quest. They were here. They had a whole crew of people here all morning long. to try to get the issue with the static resolved. Pete and his guys did a great job. Right now we are static free. There is one thing that I'm going to do on my end, which we haven't done yet, but this show, hopefully here in the very, very near future, we will be 100% static free. But shout out to those guys. They had their trucks out here and everything. We appreciate it very, very much, and hopefully we'll be able to be static free from here on out. So I was tied up with them, but talking about Germany, the United States, to Vicky, one of our great listeners who happens to be, obviously she's got to be a big shot. She snapped her fingers. That's how powerful the Patriot audience is. She doesn't even live in Arizona, but she's a high up in Quest, or CenturyLink. I say Quest, CenturyLink, sorry about that. And she made some calls and got the ball rolling for us. So, Vicky, much appreciated. Already 1,000% better. And having said that, but Kirby's interview, man, talked about Volkswagen. Remember Volkswagen with the diesel engines, and they got hit with this massive fine, way above everybody else, and how that really came about. What Germany thinks about U.S. treasuries, and then the state of the gold market. It's fantastic. We got all of that coming for you, and it appears, I know we've been waiting for this bottom in gold. We knew it shouldn't be here. It's all a fix, and Kirby actually addresses this as well. And so it's going to be great. It's going to be a great show. The show will play again tomorrow. Then we'll be back on Thursday. So make sure you get your business taken care of. We got a couple of great specials we're going to give out as well. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be right back after the break. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. We're going to go quick because I want to get everything in. So we've got several different clips, all from the same 30-some-odd minute interview that Kirby did on USA Watchdog. If you want to listen to the whole thing, go out to allamericangold.com and go to the archives for July and just start scrolling down. It was actually on yesterday's site, so July the 2nd, and you can listen to the whole thing in detail. But let's get right to it. Ramon, let's get going.
There's been a lot of news about Deutsche Bank, and why am I focusing on Deutsche Bank? I think it's the Lehman times 10 of the era right now. It's way bigger than Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers implosion caused the financial crash of 2008, and Deutsche Bank is eerily following the same pattern. And they failed the stress test most recently. You go back, they have a huge 12 times loss, a huge, massive off the Richter scale loss. Before that, they were put on a watch list. And I called my friend Rob Kirby, who's an expert on derivatives banking. He gets gold by the ton for his clients. He's an analyst. He has KirbyAnalytics.com to ask him what's going on. Rob Kirby, what in the heck is going on with Deutsche Bank? They look like they're either falling over a cliff or being pushed over a cliff. What's going on?
Well, my view about Deutsche Bank's predicament right now, to me it's eerily similar to the position that Morgan Stanley was in back in 2008-9, when Morgan Stanley's stock price had fallen down to around $5, and it's currently back up to $48. Morgan Stanley, in my view, was recapitalized by the U.S. Treasury, expressly the Exchange Stabilization Fund, and this deal was brokered through the New York Fed trading desk, where they recapitalized Morgan Stanley, who, in my view, in the time frame was critically insolvent, and Morgan Stanley was basically a cadaver on the table that they reanimated. By injecting trillions of dollars of derivatives into them, and it basically reanimated them. The Deutsche Bank situation today, in my view, is more of an expression of infighting between two regulatory regimes. the Deutsche Bank answers to German regulators. Specifically, they answer to a group called BaFin, which is a fiercely independent regulator in Germany that basically started investigating Deutsche Bank in the 2011-2012 timeframe, when allegations had been circulating all over the world that there was rigging of LIBOR or rigging of interest rates. And that drew the Bundesbank, which is the German central bank, into questioning the then Deutsche Bank chairman. I believe the guy's name was Anshu Jain. And the German Bundesbank felt that Deutsche Bank chairman Jain was being less than honest with them in direct questioning regarding let's just say interest rate rigging and anything that Deutsche Bank might have had to do with it. So the minute the Bundesbank in Germany, the central bank, the minute they have an issue with one of their players in their financial landscape, they call in BaFin, and then BaFin, once you get on the radar of BaFin, my view is that BaFin has been pretty much at the control of Deutsche Bank since probably 2012. And BaFin would have done investigations into more than interest rates, because at the same time and concurrently with allegations of impropriety in the interest rate markets, there was also a lot of allegations flying around about impropriety in the precious metals markets. And we saw basically once BaFin started investigating Deutsche Bank, we saw very quickly in succession, we saw Germany ask for an accounting or an audit of their gold on deposit at the New York Federal Reserve, and the New York Fed basically told them to get stuffed, and you cannot have an accounting of your gold that we hold in trust for you. And then that led to very quickly Germany saying, well, if we can't audit our gold and see it, we'd just like to have it back now, please. And to which the Fed basically told them to get stuffed again. And you see, this is representative, in my view, of friction between German interests and the American interests. The German interests are very aware of the malfeasance that's been conducted by the Anglo-American banking complex to basically rig interest rates and rig precious metals to make the dollar look strong. And of course, the spearhead of that activity on the part of the Anglo-American banking complex is the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which is a secretive arm of the U.S. Treasury that, in my view, holds probably many trillions worth of dark dollars, which are used to basically make the dollar look strong. And that could be any part of rigging interest rates or rigging the metals markets to make metals look unattractive, the dollar more attractive. So in any case, I highlight to you the seeming at odds nature of the German regulatory regime with the American regulatory regime. And we saw that the follow-on from this was that Deutsche Bank, who had been very active in the London gold fix and silver fix, they exited those markets altogether. Then
they were forced to exit the markets. You're saying.
In my view,
you're saying BaFin, their regulator, said, "You're out. You're done playing. You're done with this."
Yeah, that's right. They said, no more metals for you. You're out. That's my view.
And no more rigging LIBOR and no more rigging Forex, and you're out of the rigging game. Is what they,
of course,
right?
Because shortly on the back of that, Greg, we saw Deutsche Bank not only exit the markets, the metals markets, we saw them admit that they had rigged.
Yeah.
So that was the end of the first segment. So they talk about Deutsche Bank, they talk about German regulators and their arm of like the SEC, BaFin, gets involved. They start digging into Deutsche Bank, and they start seeing what they were doing. right? And we know, we heard LIBOR scandal, right? And we know they eventually, not only did they admit to that, they admitted to manipulation in the precious metals markets as well. And of course, the funny thing was, and all the banks were guilty, but then Germany, based upon what they saw, now this kind of makes sense, because remember, I've been asking this question, why for 95 years has it been okay for having everyone storing their gold here in the United States, and now all of a sudden everybody wants it back? And Kirby says it directly correlates to what they uncovered, what was going on with Deutsche Bank, what was going on with the Treasury Department of the United States, of course, and the Federal Reserve of the United States, and he's going to tie it all together. We're not done. Go ahead. Let's get to the next clip, Ramon.
They're very aware of how complicit Deutsche Bank has been in the derivatives markets, basically the interest rate derivative markets, because I've long maintained that the counterparty for much of the many, many tens of trillions that the big financial institutions have on their books in the interest rate derivatives arena, the counterparty for much of that trade has been the U.S. Treasury, and specifically the Exchange Stabilization Fund. When BaFin did their investigations and found out how deep Deutsche Bank's derivatives trading was connected to basically the U.S. Treasury complex, they freaked out. And they said, you as a German institution, your job in the world is not to sit here and perpetuate the dollar as the world's reserve currency. You're a German financial institution, not a vassal to the Federal Reserve. And
go ahead.
Well, they forced them out. They just said, you're not doing this anymore.
Well, let's fast forward to now. I mean, it just looks like are they trying to make them go under? I mean, they leaked out that they were on a watch list, the U.S. version of Deutsche Bank. They had this big 12 times variance loss, which you think that BaFin on the other side forced them out, this huge, massive off the Richter scale loss. And then they most recently they failed their stress test. I mean, is the Fed... are they trying to drive Deutsche Bank under?
Well,
because they're really weak.
Greg, I would characterize it this way. I believe, to begin with, no bank has a 12 times VaR loss in a day. So the position that was reported as being 12 times VaR, that allegedly
value at risk.
To me, this had to have been a position that the bank was carrying for some time. And if the bank was carrying this position for some time, BaFin would have been well aware that they were carrying it. And something provoked BaFin to finally say to Deutsche Bank, you are now going to close this position now. And this 12 times VaR loss, supposedly in a day, it reeks of I'm going to say intervention on the part of a regulator who just said, you're getting out of this pool right now. You are closing this position down. We want it shuttered. And so basically it's the German regulator telling Deutsche Bank, you're going to get out of this pool. And then the Americans realizing that Deutsche Bank and how hostile the Germans have become towards the criminal activity of the U.S. monetary complex. They basically said, okay, you're getting out of our pool? Well, we're going to waterboard you first. And we're going to bring public shame upon you. And I think that's
take them under, couldn't they? Couldn't they take them under doing this? I mean, their stock prices now, they hit another all-time low, last week, on, I don't know, Thursday or Friday. It was like 10.30 or 10.37, and then it popped back up for the weekend. But still under $11 a share. I mean, that's what happened to Lehman. They were $10-11 a share on a Friday, and they were, worth a penny on Monday.
Yeah.
So the question now, and you start going, you know what, that makes sense, right? I just couldn't understand why. And now you think about it, when Germany's largest bank, Deutsche Bank, is on the verge of insolvency, and yet nobody's talking about it. right? And nobody wants to mention it, and now you know why, because here's what's happened. Germany said, hey, you know what? And maybe they were living in denial, maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but they were like, I can't believe all the stuff you were doing. And, of course, helping the American, right? Helping the dollar. Hey, you're a German institution. You're supposed to be helping the euro. And forcing Deutsche Bank out of their position, which, of course, angers the Federal Reserve, which for the first time, I've been doing this for 15 years. Eric, for a lot longer, we've never heard of the central bank or anybody else telling you about a bank that's in trouble. They just don't do it. And yet they did with Deutsche Bank, last month? And now they're talking about it is, the game going on between the United States and Germany and the U.S. potentially trying to put Deutsche Bank out of business. And we're coming up. We don't have time for the next one. We'll get to the next segment, but he and I think he's right. Kirby's like, hey, listen, Germany will probably bail them out, i.e. like Morgan Stanley or any of those others that were insolvent. And then he's going to talk about, when we're done with that, he's going to talk about the gold market. It's going to be a wild ending. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break.
This is the Phyllis Schlafly Report, a daily broadcast from Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, and we're upholding the legacy of Phyllis Schlafly, grassroots activist, author of 27 books, and articulate voice for traditional values for more than 70 years. Now, here's the president of Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, Ed Martin.
One of the left's favorite tactics is to take something they don't like and to find a way to make it a dirty word for their opponents. Some examples of this include homophobia and xenophobia. If we were to take a page out of their playbook, I think it would be safe to say that liberals suffer from a severe case of Bible phobia. It does not matter what form it takes or what context it's put in, liberals cannot stand the idea of the scriptures being anywhere in public life. You don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to what the left's legal arm at the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, is up to. In Kentucky, the State Board of Education approved a measure to teach the Bible to students as a historically relevant document. The board made it clear that the standards were not to promote the Bible as devotional material, but simply to acknowledge the unquestionable impact it has had on the course of human history. That is not a radical move by the state of Kentucky. Most public school history classes include a brief overview of all major religions in a historical context. The ACLU would hear nothing of it. They immediately filed a lawsuit contending that any mention of the Bible was a violation of the separation of church and state, a liberal catchphrase rooted in neither the Constitution nor American law. Even though the ACLU claims to lead the fight against discrimination, they seem to have no problem discriminating against the Bible. The ACLU is fine with religions being discussed in classrooms, unless it is a religion they do not like. The hypocrisy never seems to end. Despite what the ACLU thinks, the American people are smart enough to know that the Bible has had an undeniably positive effect on our nation and our world. Other examples of texts that matter for our history and for our way of life include the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, which include references to God and our faith tradition that has made America so special. The ACLU might be well served to study those texts. Rather than revise history for the sake of political correctness, we should embrace history and the texts that made it possible.
This has been the Phyllis Schlafly Report from Phyllis Schlafly Eagles. When America turns our back on our Christian heritage, we shouldn't be surprised when biblical precepts like honesty, kindness, respect, justice, and freedom are abandoned. At phyllisschlafly.com, we still believe in rights endowed by our Creator. If you agree, find out more at phyllisschlafly.com. Thanks for listening to the Phyllis Schlafly Report.
Welcome back, Patriot Radio News Hour. Rob Kirby, USA Watchdog interview, talking about, and really when you think about the connection here, right? We now understand the reasoning behind Germany wanting its gold back. We now understand why the United States went public about Deutsche Bank. We understand that Germany is essentially was saying Deutsche Bank was implicit in helping the manipulate the dollar and making the dollar appear stronger than what it ever could possibly be. And we're going to pick it up from there because it gets better. Ramon, let's go to the next clip.
If I say think of something gray, think of something that's gray, that's really, really heavy. It has a trunk and big floppy ears and a tail. How many things could that be, Greg? Notice I never said the word elephant.
Yeah.
But there's only one thing it can be.
The fraud.
So when Morgan Stanley, in the time frame that I'm referencing, when Morgan Stanley grows its OTC swap book by $10 trillion in 6 months, there's only one counterparty that's possible, and that's the ESF.
But is the ESF going to rush in and bail out Deutsche Bank? And it looks like they're not going to do that. And it almost looks like they're trying to take them under.
Okay, but remember.
Isn't that what we're facing here with Deutsche Bank? They're not going to be Morgan Stanley. Their stock is at near all-time lows. That ESF is not going to bail them out. They're not playing ball with the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, and the ESF. They're not playing ball with the dollar complex. Are they going to try to take them under? I mean, that's what it looks like to me.
It could be, but just remember that the European Union has an entity that plays a lot like the ESF, and that's Mario Draghi and the European Central Bank. So, what Mario Draghi and the ECB are capable of, I would not underestimate. But what it really comes down to, Greg, is, if you're asking the question, should Deutsche Bank fail? Yes. But Deutsche Bank's derivatives book has declined dramatically from its heights. But a lot of American institutions, their derivatives books have shrunk dramatically over the last number of years. And all I'll say is this, Greg: anybody who points to Deutsche Bank's derivatives book and says that's the cause of their problems, well, you know what? You've got American banking institutions. Beginning with Morgan Stanley, the top 5 American banking institutions, you've got Morgan Stanley with a $35 trillion notional book. You've got Bank of America with a $36 or $7 trillion book, and that's been cut in half over the last 4 or 5 years. And then you've got Morgan Guaranty Trust Morgan Chase, JP Morgan Chase. They've got a book that's around $50 trillion. And then you've got Citibank that's over $50 trillion, and then the biggest one of them all is Goldman Sachs, and they're in at $58 or $59 trillion in notional. And if you think the constituents in Deutsche Bank's derivatives book are materially different than the constituents of these American institutions' derivatives books, you'd be sadly mistaken. They all have the same toxic crap in them.
So think about that for a minute. First of all, too big to fail, never ended. It's only gotten worse. And I love his point. Listen, if Deutsche Bank is no good, then none are any of these other banks, because if you think Deutsche Bank is holding something different than all the rest of them, of course we know that's not true. Let's go to the next part.
And getting back to this frictional descriptive that I've given, characterizing the relationship between American regulatory interests and German regulatory interests. It was in 2015, Greg, September 2015, that Volkswagen opened a new engine plant in Russia. And that was basically in contravention to American wishes, because America wanted to put Russia at the time, and still does want to put Russia into an economic penalty box. And as the date approached for the opening of the Volkswagen engine plant in Russia, so did the rhetoric between the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and Volkswagen regarding emissions on their diesel engines.
And they got a huge fine over that.
Sure, but the engine plant in Russia opened on September 3rd, and then I think it was less than a week later, the charges were actually leveled against Deutsche Bank for, I think, $17 billion regarding the emissions scandal. And I mean, you couldn't have a closer measure of cause and reaction than this engine plant being opened in Russia, by Volkswagen, and then days later, Volkswagen is subject to, this very, very, very punitive ridiculousness on the part of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, saying that Volkswagen cheated. Well, you know what? I'll tell you this, because I've actually dug into this, because I did own, up until yesterday, as a matter of fact, I owned a Volkswagen diesel product myself. And I'll tell you, I did a lot of digging into this, and I know that the German diesel engines are regarded by people in the auto industry around the world as the best and the cleanest diesel engines on the planet. So, and they're the most reliable engines, and I'll just tell you this. My view of it is that this was a slap in the face to Volkswagen and to Germany for not siding with the Americans and shutting down trade and shutting down economic opportunities with Russia. So,
and you think it started really with Deutsche Bank and the regulators saying, "All right, okay, kids, out of the pool, no more. You're not doing this. You're not properly."
Absolutely.
You're saying that Deutsche Bank was helping the U.S., what you've said in the past, hide the sausage, all this debt, and prop up the U.S. dollar. That's what you're saying Deutsche Bank was doing. And BaFin, the regulators, said no more.
That's right.
Think about that. Right, and of course, it all makes sense now. Of course, like we didn't know, of course, everybody was cheating, and I'm sure everybody knew about it. But now at least we know why, right? And we can understand what truly has been happening for a long time now. And like I said, it's never the news you get on TV. That's never what's really important. It takes a while. It takes a lot of digging for us to realize what really is happening. We got the big gold segment coming up next. We're going to wrap up Kirby in the next segment. But just to recap. So Deutsche Bank, when they run afoul and get caught, and they all got caught, right? The manipulating LIBOR, the precious metals market, you name it, all the banks, every bank was Wells Fargo. Whether or not they want to admit it or not, they were all Wells Fargo. When BaFin, the German regulator, gets involved, they uncover that Deutsche Bank was helping the United States, and really essentially, quite simply, overvalue the U.S. dollar and make it appear much stronger than what it really is. And then all of a sudden, first thing Germany does is say, give us our gold back. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back with the rest of Kirby when we return. (800-951-0592). Before we get to the special, we're going to finish here with Rob Kirby, but just fascinating, right? Now we kind of really understand, because one of the things, like with Iran and oil, where's Germany been? Right? They're not supporting us. And now Kirby's talking about, hey, remember Volkswagen? Right? The second they opened a plant in Russia, the United States got mad and miraculously, you're cheating on admissions, which obviously the timing reeks of everybody's been cheating forever. Of course they have. Everybody was. Obvious, at least it appears obvious, and essentially was trying to bully Germany around, and now Germany is like, hey, you know what? We're tired of being bullied, and then they are now the United States is trying to take Deutsche Bank down. So what's really happening in the gold market? And I'm not talking about what I do, right? Because, I'll sell, maybe I'll sell 20, 30, 50, 100 20s. I'll sell 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 cases of silver, depending on the week. But here's a guy that delivers metric tons. In other words, he's helping countries put away gold. What's he saying about the gold market? Well, let's finish with Kirby here, Ramon.
So are you worried about the system going down with this kind of fighting? I mean, they're not working together to prop things up. That's what you're saying. They're on opposing teams, and they're they're pulling their support for the dollar, the Germans, which is a big deal, Germany. And so are you saying, that, are you more worried about the financial system going down now with this kind of infighting?
Well, I mean, Greg, I've long maintained that fiat money has a life cycle. Just like human beings have life cycles, all plants have life cycles, all animals have life cycles. You know, you have birth, you have adolescence, you have, middle age or adulthood, and, then you have old age, and then you have death. Well, by fiat money's very design, it has a life cycle. And most fiat money regimes have a life that, an estimated lifespan of around 40 years. And we've been on we depegged from the dollar, or America depegged from the dollar, depegged from gold, went off the gold standard in August of 1971 when Nixon closed the gold window. So count ahead 40 years. You're at 2011. So at this point, this current fiat money regime has lasted for 47 years. I would tend to bet that this fiat money regime we're currently living in is an extreme old age. And to me, suggesting that this fiat money regime will continue for another 20 years is akin to betting that somebody who's 100 years old is going to live to see 120.
What are your? I know. I want to get into this because gold's going to get just hammered, and my friend Greg Marino says, "Listen, what I see is they're hammering gold, silver, Bitcoin. I mean, your silver's down around mining. Of course, it popped up a little bit last week, but he said they're just hammered. They want everybody out of that kind of stuff, and they want them into the stock market, into the U.S. dollar. What are your friends? You arrange the buy and sell, mostly the buy, of tonnage of gold for people. What are you seeing on the world market where you're arranging gold by the ton for people? What are your contacts telling you about what's going on right now?
The demand for physical metal has never been higher than it is right now, and I would actually characterize the demand coming out of the Far East as being acute right now.
What does that mean? What are they saying to you?
They can't get enough. They can't. There's not enough physical metal to satisfy the amount of dollars they wish to put to work in obtaining physical metal.
Does that mean people are trying to get out of the dollar? Are your clients trying to shed all their dollars, all their treasury bonds? Are they trying to get away from it?
Let's just say they're trying to exchange dollars for physical metal in extreme amounts. Yes, that is occurring, whether anyone wants to admit it. And despite the paper games and the attacks coming on paper exchanges, like COMEX and even the LBMA, where they pound the living daylights out of the paper price of metals, the demand for physical metal, Greg, is unrelenting, and it's insatiable, and the people that want it cannot get enough.
You said a long time ago that this is going to end when China, I guess, and other people don't get their gold. That when they can't get gold anymore, that's when the whole thing ends. Are we getting close to the point which you predicted a few years ago that said, this is going to end when people stop getting their gold?
Yeah, basically, and then and that's akin to saying, when you're committed to kicking a can down the road, Greg, at some point you run out of road, and we're very close to running out of road. So, and betting, like I say, betting on this fiat money system to continue operating as we've known it for our lives is in my view like betting on somebody. It's like try buying insurance on somebody who's 100 years old. You can't. Nobody will sell it to you. But yet the powers that be seem very committed to trying to tell us or trying to make us believe that metaphorically, someone who's 100 is going to live to see 120 or 150 for that matter. And it's never happened. So, and it won't here. People don't live that long.
That was Rob Kirby on USA Watchdog, and he said, despite what they want you to believe, physical demand for gold has never been this strong. Of course, we hear just the opposite here, right? And of course, it's paper, it's manipulated. He says the clients, out of the who he's talking about, right? He's talking about China, he's talking about India, he's talking about Russia. saying they can't buy enough of it, right? They're buying everything that comes, they're buying. And talking about the duration, the life cycle of fiat money, and saying that this one's about ready to end. And, of course, that makes sense. We're right here at the end of this huge debt bubble. Patriot Radio News Hour got a great special before you head off for your barbecues and 4th of July weekend. Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment coming up. Eight 800-951-0592. Again, if you want to listen to the entire Kirby interview, if you go to our archives, July the 2nd, just click on July 2018 and scroll down. You'll see it there, and you can listen to the whole interview. Fascinating, really, just separating it all for us and making it so easy to understand. And I loved his point at the very end, talking about the life cycle of fiat money and all these people out there betting and saying that the dollar is going to be around 20 years from now, 30 years from now, is akin to saying someone is 100 that's going to live to be 120. I don't like those odds either. And really, when you think about what Germany's done, got a great answer to what was behind that move, what Russia and Asia and China and everybody else in the world is doing, stockpiling gold while they're trying to convince you and manipulating the paper markets. Make sure you take the time to put it away. Did the bottom happen yesterday? Sure looks that way, right? Dow's down 150, gold's up big today, $1,255. Silver's up to $16 to the ounce. Here's what we got going today. Last call here, rolls of silver Eagles, $380 a roll on silver Eagles. These are going to be backdate rolls of U.S. Silver Eagles, $380 a roll on silver. On the gold side, U.S. $10 Indians. And, $10 Indians usually run, about $40, $50 more than a regular $10 Liberty. Today, just for $5 extra, $675. That is a great 4th of July special. The $10 Indians, the Indians, the best coin, at least in my opinion, America ever minted. U.S. $10 Indian gold pieces. This is the Lady Liberty with the Indian headdress on. $675 today at 800-951-0592. Place your orders today. Again, remember, we will be closed tomorrow for the 4th of July holiday. If you need to get a hold of us, leave us a message, and we will return your call when we get back here on Thursday. But to repeat, U.S. Silver Eagle rolls, $380 a roll. U.S. $10 Indian gold pieces, $675. So for an extra $5, instead of getting a Liberty, you can get an Indian. 800-951-0592. I hope all of you listen. Have a great weekend. Spend some. You know me, right? If you can, spend that time with your family. Enjoy the holidays. Be safe. Use Uber and Lyft. Listen, these people are working 2, 3, 4 jobs. Don't drive around hammered and all that stuff. If you're going to the lakes, try to beat the heat. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday, and we'll see you on Thursday.